Hi homeowners, and welcome back to another video here on Just Sharika. I am Sharika, and on today's video, we will continuing our mortgage series, the CIBC First Caribbean. Here to able guide us through this series is Mrs. Donalda Daly Martin, Mortgage Manager at the CIBC First Caribbean. So on today's episode, we'll be diving into the whole process of pre-approvals. But before we get into the discussion, just in case you would have missed our first two episodes, our first two videos in the series, I'm just going to ask Mrs. Donalda Martin to just tell us briefly a 1 or 2 sentence about herself and her role at the CIBC.
Thank you, Sharika. Good morning again, and I'm happy to be back on your program. I am Donalda Daly Martin, and I'm at CIBC First Caribbean as the Mortgage and Loans Manager. And we have the exciting task of putting homeowners in their homes, helping persons who also are investing in properties to purchase their properties. And we have a very professional staff here, professional relationship managers to help guide you through the process.
Okay, so for those of you who are watching and you're in the process of buying a home and obtaining a mortgage, and this video is so for you. All right, so as I said earlier, we'll be looking at pre-approvals. So all you need to know about pre-approval will be explained today. So stay tuned for this discussion. All right, so Mrs. Martin, we're going to talk pre-approvals today. So can you explain to us what is a pre-approval?
Okay, the pre-approval takes the application one step further from the pre-qualification stage that we discussed in our earlier video.
Right.
This is a more in-depth step in that there is in-depth analysis of your financials, and it involves some verification of the financial information that you would have presented to us when we were doing the pre-qualification. Right. And it involves pulling a credit bureau report, getting your financial statements, and getting all the relevant things. We are now going to be writing the loan. The pre-approval process is a process that ensures that you have everything in place so that you can the approval, the final approval process is smooth.
Okay. All right, but just to recap a little bit for those who would have missed our first 2 videos, and just in case you would have missed that, we would have given you tips on buying your first home, the do's and the don'ts. So ensure that you go back and watch those videos. I will be leaving a link right above, so for you to just have that context of where we're coming from. But just in case you are just joining us, I just want Mrs. Martin to just give us a brief explanation as to the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. What's the main difference there?
Okay, the main difference between the pre-qualification and the pre-approval is that the pre-qualification is that first step that you're taking when you get, most realtors nowadays will not go out to look property with you, because what they want to know is that you are pre-qualified for an amount, that you have at least done some legwork in terms of assessing where you are in the buying process, in the home buying process, and at least a financial institution would have signed off to say, yes, this person can afford the amount that the person can afford. So that pre-qualification stage is the initial stage. It normally does not involve a lot of spending on your part. It involves you getting maybe your salary slips. It involves you, just getting basic identification, etc., and giving us basic information. The pre-qualifications, the pre-approval stage now is the stage at which, because the approval, we're going towards approval now, is where we get a little more in-depth, where credit reports are pulled, where surveyor's ID report and valuations are done. So at this step now, some expenditure is being done, right? Depending on right.
Okay, just for my understanding, so that means the pre-approval is when you are already in the process now. So you would have probably identified the property and you are now putting certain documents together in terms of getting your surveyor to come in and survey the property. So you have that cost, you would have like probably closing costs and so on that is coming up and so on. And your pre-qualification is that initial stage where you want to know your buying power, how much of a house I can afford. And that's when you bring the PRN and your ID and you get the bank to look at your bank statements and your salary slips and so on and tell you, all right, you can afford a $10 million property. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right.
Perfect.
Beautiful. All right. So you made mention that most realtors, before they take you to look at any property, they want to see that pre-qualification letter.
Right.
Right. So
because they don't want to be looking for a property that is not in your range, whether it is that you can afford more or you can afford or you cannot afford. They want to be able to pinpoint the types of property that will fit your budget.
Okay.
And work with you.
Right, because they want to ensure that they're not wasting your time or theirs.
Right. Yes, right? That's
so they
correct.
Want to know you're ready and you can afford to purchase at this stage.
Right. Yes.
All right. So in terms of the pre-approval process, can you explain to us what really happens during that process? So I would have gone through the pre-qualification, so I know what property I can afford. I know have the property that I want to purchase. So I'm going through the pre-approval process now. Can you explain to us what happens during that stage?
All right. So during the pre-approval process, and the pre-approval is just a link between your application and getting full approval, right? And I will tell you that there are some applications that really go right through the process. Once you have gathered all the required documents that we have stipulated in or for the mortgage.
Right.
Right. Once you have those documents, you can get full approval.
Okay.
You can get what we call a one-shot approval. But with mortgages, from time to time, you will find that something might not be complete. Say, for example, the valuation report may not be complete. So when you have like new builds, that's construction in process in terms of, say, an apartment complex that has not been completed yet. And maybe the final valuation is not ready, or even the surveyor's ID report, or any of the reports that are very important documents in this process that have not been presented. Then what we do is we do a full assessment of your financial situation, and pending the presentation of those documents, so the pre-approval comes in that way. So you're being pre-approved for this loan. When we get these documents, then we can move to the straight approval, approval of the loan. So the aim is to get a one-shot, as I said, approval.
A one-shot approval. So if the person has all the necessary documents, all the finances are okay.
Right.
Can do a one-shot pre-approval.
Right.
Instead of having qualification and then coming back to the pre-approval.
Right.
All right, so that's to know to all those persons who are viewing. So instead of having to do both, you can actually get one done. Just ensure that you have all the necessary documents, and your client representative from the CIBC, once you contact that person will also guide you So you will know the steps that you need to take to ensure that, you made the process a little bit more seamless for yourself. So instead of having to get one, you can actually get one. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's very helpful to the client or the individual who is considering purchasing a home. So that's very good to know. All right. So as it relates to the issuance of a pre-approval versus final approval, what are some reasons that may cause or hinder one person getting a final approval?
All right. Sharika, as I was explaining, missing and incomplete documents such as evaluation report or the surveyor's ID report that may prevent you from getting a final approval in one shot. Or incomplete verification of income or other related documents, because you would have presented your income letter and salary slips to us. We have to verify them. Sometimes that takes time depending on who you're dealing with. Incomplete requests from our credit adjudicators, the persons who approve the loan. So they might assess your application and come back with a request for something else.
Okay.
And if with that, they would give you a pre-approval until that is presented before you get a final approval. Okay. Right. And this may be something as simple as asking you, after assessing your credit situation, they realize that, maybe for you to be in a better position to afford this loan, you might need to liquidate a credit card debt that you have or something, right? So they would give you this pre-approval pending you liquidating that debt. Right. Because we want to be comfortable that our clients are managing their financial affairs.
Understandable. All right. So on that point, though, you would probably have persons saying, why is it that the bank is telling, what if I want to struggle a little bit? Why are you telling me that I can't get this amount of money and my salary can afford to pay it? Why is the bank so concerned about me managing my finances? Why are you so concerned with me being able to pay my light bill, pay my water bill, pay for food, but I can pay the mortgage? Why is the bank concerned with all of those things? What would you say to that person?
Well, we are in the business of ensuring that our clients have a healthy financial situation, just like how your doctor ensures that you're healthy. And so your doctor will advise you in terms of what to eat, how to eat, and some things not to do. So we have our fiduciary responsibilities that we have to carry out. So we cannot lead persons down the wrong path, really. So we are going to, ultimately the decision is going to be up to you, but we have to guide you and we have to put in guidelines so that we do not put you at risk either.
Okay.
Do not put you at risk and do not put other persons at risk in the process.
So there is such a thing called financial health. And the bank is looking out for your financial health. So that's why, guys, you cannot just go to the bank and get all the money from your salary paying this mortgage. They have to ensure that you have a little leftover that you can live. Because remember, things can happen. And you don't want to be house poor, right? All your money going to paying this mortgage. So that's the reason behind that. But to know, Mrs. Martin, can you kind of remind us what percentage of one's salary would the bank allot to paying a mortgage? Is it a third?
Well, 1/3 is in the industry standard. Yeah. Usually you try not to go over that amount, or you try to stay within that band as closely as possible.
Right.
So at least 1/3 of your income coming out for mortgages.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. As it relates to the timeline for one to get a pre-approval done, how long would it take for the bank to provide a client with a pre-approval letter? Given all being well, all the documents are submitted, what's the turnaround time?
All right. Well, for the pre-approval, we don't normally give a letter. We would just inform the persons that they have been pre-approved. We would give a pre-qualification letter at the beginning. Right. And then in the process, if there are one or two items as discussed before that is required, then we can give a pre-approval, and we would verbally inform the client that you have been pre-approved for a loan of X amount, and then pending us getting the documents. The time frame, I guess you are probably asking me about the time frame for approval, for any approval. Our approval process is very quick. Once you have all the documents, as I was saying, that if you have everything together and your credit is good and your financials are good, we can give you within 48 hours an approval, a full approval, to say that you have been approved. After you have been approved, then what we would do is present you with a facility letter that you would need to, we would put the terms and conditions in the facility letter, and then you would sign the facility letter. But to inform you that you have been approved for a loan can take as short as 48 hours.
Okay, beautiful. You made mention of terms and conditions, which now prodded my mind to think, what could possibly cause, after one getting a pre-approval, what could possibly cause, other than what you would have mentioned earlier, not sure if it's the same thing, what could possibly cause an individual's pre-approval after it was given to be revoked?
I wouldn't say revoked, but remember, one of the premise that we go on in approving loans is that everything that you have given us is correct.
Right.
For argument's sake, if we should call your employer or your alleged employer, and what you have presented is different to what was given to us, things like those could cause it to be revoked.
Yeah. Okay. And if the candidate decide to take on additional debts?
Right, during the process. And that is why we would advise you to stick close with your relationship manager and not take on additional debt, because if you take on additional debts, then what that does is that it now puts your affordability, it moves the affordability for the mortgage to a different place. And in assessing, you might find that you have done something that makes you not eligible for the amount that you were contemplating for the mortgage.
Right. All right. So just to remind the viewers that once you get your pre-approval, it's not a final approval. Be reminded of that, to ensure that you liaise and stay close, as Mrs. Martin would have said, with your client representative. Don't take on any additional debt. And we would have explained that in our previous video as well. So if in case you missed that, go ahead and watch it. Don't take on any additional debt. Ensure that the information that you're submitting to the bank is accurate. So don't say you work at a place when you know you don't work there, because they're going to call and do their background checks. Your credit reports, don't hide any financial information. You know you owe some money here, you know you have some debt here. Don't hide it. Disclose it, because a credit report will be done on you, right? So just bear that in mind, because it's also helping you and also helping the bank to ensure that they can provide you with the information within the 48 hours, 2 days. That's very quick. Within 2 days turnaround period that is outlined by the bank. All right, so that pretty much sums up the pre-approval process. So the CIBC First Caribbean has a comprehensive document that outlines the step of the pre-approval. So I will be leaving that link down below so you can click that link and have a look at that document if you need more information. At this point, I just want to thank you, Mrs. Daly Martin, for taking the time out to be with us here on this video. Thank you for your expertise and your guidance in this process.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for having me, Sharika. It has been good working with you.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure working with you too. And at this point, we just want to say thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in our next video in our mortgage series. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.